what is we had to do here. So in the assignment wise, everybody ready with the assignment? Like you have completed your assignments?
Sir, I'm sorry, sir. I couldn't complete. I was very busy last
Mhm.
full week.
Okay. Yeah. Any all the other person?
Oh, yes, it is completed.
Okay. Good. And Kavya, Akshay.
No, sir, mind. I did not complete it.
Okay. Yeah. So Kavya, you also has to do this. Okay, because it's important. It's really important, like to complete because we'll be keep moving, but otherwise you will be like missed it. Then if you're not able to do that, then you'll be losing like little part. You may feel that it's understood. That might be okay also, but if you do by your own, it will be good. Okay, so we're like just try to complete all your assignment. I'm not giving you any big assignments, but it's like try to do it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. So let me share my screen, and then we are going to start our class also. So, like in the last class, like we especially talk about is what is SAP and user, how we can create a user, and then now today first we see like what is the different type of users is also there, and then we can go with the user group and other stuff. Okay. So document everybody received it, right? This PDF or no? Or anybody missed out this document? Okay, so what we will be going to learn here today, like here in SAP, like we have the different type of users in the system. So the type of the users is like dialog ID, system ID, and communication ID. So these are three type of ID that will be creating into the system. Not three actually. These two other IDs are there, like service and reference ID. So let's see the purpose of it. So whenever we say, create a ID by AID in the system. So it will be by default taking the ID as a dialog type. So what that means of the dialog type of ID. So this kind of ID belong to a specific person, like a living person, and it has a specific name, the first name, the last name, the email ID. So these detail is there for that living person that we consider as a dialog ID. Okay, so in SAP, like we have various type of ID. So one type of ID is dialog type ID, uh, which is able to log into the system and able to see the screens actually. Okay, the SAP screens, like creation of the user ID, creation of the sales order. So these are the different type of screens are there that we can see that, right? So that is the purpose of this type of users. Then we like here dialog type of user, and then one more ID. I will come back to that other ID like system ID, communication ID, or like a reference ID. Then one more type of ID is also there, which is we call as a service ID. So see, the service ID is also a kind of ID which is especially used for the purpose of providing access to the user for uh, like a larger group of people. But this ID type is a generic ID. So like the generic ID means it doesn't have any uh, uh, it doesn't have any like a name for that ID. That would be like a different ID. Different ID means, so suppose 4 or 5 people want to use that ID, so that will be considered as a service ID. Okay. Okay. So that is the idea behind this service ID. Okay. And Then, like here, we the difference. So in the interview question also they will be asking like what is the purpose of dialogue ID and what is the purpose of service ID. So see the difference whenever we are creating a dialogue ID, the ID is only for a specific person, single person, and whereas the service ID, like it is a generic ID, so multiple person can able to log in with this ID. So that is the purpose of it. And how we can do it in the system. So uh, in the system, how we can do that? So in the system, like while creating the ID, we can create the ID into the system. It's same method SU01, but while creating a ID type, you can select here the ID type as a system ID type. Okay, so service ID, sorry. Okay, so let's see how we can do that in the system. Okay, so we log into the system. So take example like if you want to create a web ID, just take example. So web ID is already there. So if you click on create or if you want to change, and then especially here is the place where we can say the ID is a different ID. So here the user type is a different. Like if it is dialog, then it is a dialog kind of ID. If we select the ID type as a service, then we can create a service ID. So let's create this Uber ID we already have, and then I just open a parallel session. So if you click on this button, that means we are able to open the parallel session. And then if you run the transaction SU01, and then because service ID is a generic name, so we can keep here the service ID, service 3, for example. Click on create. So here, service ID doesn't belong to any person, so it doesn't contain any first name, last name into the system. So we just have to give some name because last name is a mandatory. It doesn't have any phone number, mobile number, email ID because it's not belong to any person. And while creating this type of ID, we can go with the service ID. Okay. Then we can set the password for this. Or for example, welcome 123. Okay. And then the service ID is been created. So let's see, we share the password to like 10%, and then 10% will be log into the system. So what will happen? Suppose I just try to log, just closely observe. So I will ask the difference. So service 03, na? Service 3 actually. Okay. So see, the important thing to know, the system doesn't ask me to change the password, right? Even though I will just log into the system, so it is not asking for the password. Okay, so that is the change here, right? Okay, so understood everybody. So the important aspect is whenever we are creating any service ID, the user who trying to log into the system even the first time, system doesn't have to change or the user doesn't have to change the password. right? That is one of the important thing. Second thing is suppose we share this password to other user also, and he also try to log in here for this user, the same user. The system doesn't ask to or sending a message that you already logged in, don't log in again, right? Whereas in the dialog ID, like this ID, what we have by which we logged in, this is like a belong to any person. So if we try to log in with this ID again, then system will say that you already logged in with this ID. Don't log in again. Maybe I just reset the password for Uber just to take example. So I'm just trying to log in with Uber. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So see, first time we are trying to log in, system would say to change the password. That is not happen in service ID, right? It will ask whenever what is the difference between the service ID and the dialog ID. So whenever we are trying to log in with the dialog ID means living person ID, and the person try to log in, system asks him to change the password. Okay. Okay. So like okay, welcome 3, 2, 1 something. Uh-huh. Okay. So I just logged in into the system. Suppose I somebody else taken the password or he himself trying to log in again with the same user ID, then then what will happen? Let's see. So Ubaid already logged in into the system and then he is trying to log in again. So see, system what says message user user Ubaid already logged in into the client 200. Note that multiple logon to production system using the same ID are not part of the SAP licensing agreement. Okay. So it is not the part of the licensing agreement. And then if it is happen, so that is not happen in a service ID. Multiple user can able to log in at a time. All right. So the question is in which scenario we can use service ID. So we can create a service ID in the test system. Suppose. So we can share the same test ID, the user ID password to all the people who is going to do the testing or test users. Okay. So that is the idea about this. Okay.
Sir, can you repeat the last point, sir, just once?
Yeah. So the service ID, especially used in the testing system or test system because we want to give that same user ID password to multiple testers. Okay. So that
Oh,
we doesn't have to give the different individual parts password to individual people. All the people can use the same password and do the testing for their area. For example, if you give the same ID for the finance consultant, so he will check the finance related stuff in the system. If you give the same user ID for the security, so the person is able to use the security related stuff, right? So different person will be shared with the same user ID password. Okay, so that is
sir,
the idea.
but if we do that,
Mm.
uh, SAP they will also charge for licensing also, no, sir, as
No,
per
no.
use.
In the testing environment, no.
Okay, okay. So in production, it is not allowed.
Production, it is not a case actually. Production, we are not creating at all.
Okay,
Okay,
okay, sir.
good. Any other question by anyone? Range, Kamya, Akshay, any question? No, leave. That is like that has to be a dialogue ID. Okay, because one person has to log in at a time. Okay, so means whatever the ID we create on your name is a dialogue ID. Okay, good. Okay, so then we'll be moving to another type. So we have seen two type of user ID, dialogue ID and service ID. So let's see one more type of user ID that we call as a like a any ID you can take. Maybe you can take as a like a system ID. So see the system ID is the ID which is used for the system related work. So system related work, if I say what that means here. So so take example using the SAP system. If anybody want to apply the leave, okay, that he is going for leave, and in SAP system he is applying the leave. So system automatically send the leave request to his specific manager. Okay, how? So who will take the input and then transfer it? That is completely dependent on the type, completely done by the system ID. The system ID is the ID we who take the request from the system, and then it is transferring the request to the other person. Okay, so that is the purpose of it. Okay, all right. Because so what really happened in the system? Like once we do that, this system will run this for us. So like, or suppose the user is applying the leave. So the leave quota will be reduced from him if the leave is been approved from the manager, correct? So if suppose the user had 20 leaves and then he apply for 5 leaves, for example. So the system has to update his leave record that he will have only the 15 leaves, right? Correct, no? So how it happen? Like this will happen with the help of the some program is running, which will be sending a request to the manager and it will be updating the quota for each of the employee once the leave record has been approved or leave request has been approved. So this kind of job, this kind of work is done by the system ID that we do. And why we do with this ID? So the reason is like if you want to do this kind of job, with dialog ID, and tomorrow, like your person, like a where, for example, left the organization, so your program will not run. Your job has got failed, right? But if if you schedule the job with the system ID, either you increase the salary for Uber or not, for this ID doesn't matter. It will keep running in the system. Okay, correct, na? So that's the reason SAP created a type of the ID which is system ID, and nobody is able to log in with the user ID password for the system ID, and it is used only for the system related work. Okay, that is the main difference between the system ID. So let's see how we can create. The method is same. We have to go to SU01. Suppose sys9. This also doesn't have any first name, last name, email ID because it's not belong to any person. So instead of user type, we have to select the system ID. So I suppose you try to log in with this ID. Let's see what will happen. See, we are not able to log in with this. So what is happening? You are not able to log in with this ID. Okay. So that is the purpose of it. Okay.
Sir, one question, sir. Sir, in this is related to the service and dialogue. So
Mm,
service ID, we it doesn't ask for the changing of the password. I mean,
correct. Correct.
initial password itself, we log in. But that initial password, does it expire, sir? Or
No, it will expire in the sense if the user will give the multiple time the wrong password, then it will expire.
okay,
Okay.
no, but
So,
generally, sir, if if the user login doesn't happen for some time in SAP,
mm,
3 4 days, then that initial password also expires. So in this service user also, is this the same case? After some days, it will expire.
some days, yeah. If you set the settings like for all the users, then yes. For this
Okay,
user also it will expire.
okay,
Okay. But normally we do this expiring thing for dialog ID. Okay.
okay.
Because
So
in quality system only we are creating this service ID. So so this parameter setting will not do in quality, it doesn't matter much, right?
yeah, that is fine, sir. But why I'm asking is because if it expires, then again we have to change it to dialogue, and then can we change that to dialogue, sir? Once
Which
the
ID?
type of user, any ID, any service user ID after creating,
Uh,
can
yeah, yeah.
we? Okay,
We can create anytime, change anytime.
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So this is one thing, like we are not able to log in. This is the one, and I will just show you the case, like how to use this case for, like, um, what is how to use it, this kind of ID. Okay. So first of all, like we assign some access, like we for system ID. I'm just assigning full access right now. Okay. But this kind of profile we are not going to assign to anybody in the production system. Okay. So now I suppose you want to schedule a program. So to schedule a program, just it is just see the case actually. Okay. So I'm just going to show you the place where it could be used. So we'll be having some transaction SM35, I think 36, I think, yeah. So SM36 is the transaction code which is used to define a background job. Means it is running a program in the background. So every day night, suppose you want to update some data, like a leave record take example, right? So you have to schedule a program on a username, then it will schedule. So to schedule a program, like I just say test 9 something, and then where you want to schedule, that's okay. Then you can go to this next step. So here it is asking like with which user you want to schedule. So if you schedule with the system train, for example, right? Any program name you can take which you want to schedule. Maybe I just take this example. So the idea here, if we schedule this program with this ID, okay. So this program, running this program a specific time will not fail actually. So if we check it or save it, just nine. Okay. It's been scheduled, right? You can set for this start condition also. If you want to run this program like every day, then you also have the option to keep here the like the period from when it is going to start. So if you want to schedule this program from this date, okay, and at the night time, means you want to schedule, assume like this program is nothing but your leave record update program, right? So what will happen? Like you can schedule a program with like a nighttime 23:51, and then save it, say okay, and then it will run every day on this time. If you want to create like here selection like a daily, so daily this time, this from this date it is starting, and daily this time it is going to schedule the program. Okay, so this is how we can make it happen. The use case, I mean to say, right? So the important aspect is here this program is being scheduled by this user. So this user will run this. So that is the purpose of that. Okay. So what we understood with the system ID, first of all, nobody is able to log in. That is one important aspect. Second important aspect is like the 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 system user password is also is not being reset again. It's first time you are logging, it is not try to reset the password. Whatever the password we keep, that will become the productive password. Okay. All right, everybody.
What is the T code name?
SM35 to schedule
SM.
35 to schedule a
Sorry.
program. SM Krishna,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, na?
Uh,
SM35.
okay.
So everybody knows that, na? SM Krishna, CM
Yes. Yes.
from Karnataka.
HCM layer, Karnataka.
Okay, so that is
So,
the
sir, this is for we are using the only for the batch jobbing scheduling. Yes.
correct. That's correct. Okay.
Only login type is the system.
Yes.
Okay.
So we are scheduling the program by system ID. Okay.
Yes.
And why we are running with the system ID? Because this user is not going to expire. It is not going to leave the organization. Correct.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
system ID. So we doesn't have to bother to make an increment for this user. Not doesn't matter for this user. Correct. What if somebody not give the increment for any living person? He is going to leave the organization. And if he left, then you are going to delete that dialog ID. Suppose instead if it is dialog ID, and then your program is stop working. Correct. Stop running. Working is not running. It is working if you schedule with again with some other user, but it will not run if your user is been expired or deleted or locked. It will not run. Right. So that is the idea. So this is okay, everybody. Like a dialog ID for the like a named user or the living person, it will be belong to a specific person, a single person. System ID again like a generic ID, which not belong to any person, and this will be used for system related work. Communication we see sometime. Then we have seen the service ID. So the service ID is a type of dialog ID only. The person is able to see, he can able to log into SAP, he can see some screens, he can able to see the dialog box, right? That is the thing. But the difference is this is generic ID, it not belong to any person. And then here for the service ID, like if you give the password, that will become a productive password. So the user doesn't have to change the password even with the first time login. Okay. All right, everybody till here. Gets what is said? Gets it? Come again. System user. Correct. No. It is not getting charged. Only the dialog ID is getting charged. Okay. No. Then we have like a kind of ID that we call as a communication ID. So see the communication ID is an ID which is especially used for the purpose of communicating or integrating two or more system into one. Okay. So if you want to integrate like two systems, take example, in that scenario we have to use the communication ID. And this ID again not belong to any person and nobody is able to log in with the communication ID. That is used only for the integration perspective, integrating two systems with one to transfer some data with each other, right? So here, can I not be here? I'll take you to Okay, so this I'll show you in tomorrow. This one. Okay. So this communication ID, and then we have the reference ID. So the reference ID, see, the reference ID is the ID which is used especially for the indirect access. Okay, so and what that means of indirect access. So suppose you want to give the access to the user for doing the daily job, like some of the access you want to give to the user to perform the daily job, for example, or the common access that we can consider. So to perform this, like we'll be having a reference ID. Okay. So means whatever the access we give to the reference ID that is inherited by the user whom we get as a reference. So what that means here. Suppose the reference ID is there. Suppose and then we have given some common access like to print something like right print or SU50 SU3 transaction for example or some other common transaction assume. And then you have the user ID. Take example like Uber. So Uber ID we created a reference ID, and in the reference ID, suppose we have given the SU3. So what will happen if we add this reference ID to Uber? Uber is also going to get the SU3 access indirectly. Okay. But why we have to do in this way? The idea here is suppose you have the 10 user, then you can add all the 10 users like these access, the same access. Like for example, like Uber is there, and then Akshay user ID is there, and then you have the reference ID, right? So what will happen? This user is also going to get this access, Akshay also. So the important aspect here is once we give that access to multiple users in that way. So tomorrow, if you want to give the extra access as a common access, for example, uh, like some access related to uh, anything you can take SU01D, for example. So if you add this access to the reference user, so automatically this user also get it. Okay. So means if any common access you want to give to everybody, okay, then you can add it to the reference ID and all the user will automatically getting this ID. So that is the purpose of it, right? That is the logic of it. So he also will get this here. So if you see another way, like you can add this to this ID if you don't want to give to the reference ID, then you have to add this ID to the Akshay also. And likewise, if you're going to add anything, you have to keep adding for all the users, which is a tedious job. But if you already connected this ID, so if you want to give this a new access to all the people, so you only has to give the access to the reference ID and all the people who is associated with it automatically get it. Okay. All okay somehow.
Sir, just repeat this one, sir. Once I just missed it. I'm sorry.
Mm. So idea here is suppose we have these users like 1 to 20 users is there. And if I ask you, give that access SU3 access to all these people. So what we have to do, we have to going to log in here and then add a role which contain the SU3 to all these users, right? That is the way,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
SU3, take example like SU3 only. So the idea here is we have to give in this way so that then only we are able to provide SU3 access to all this user 1 to user 20, right? So it is like a tedious task to do in this way. Okay. But the same way how it can be achieved. So instead of adding this SU3 to all the people, you create a reference ID, okay, REF ID, and then in the reference ID you add SU3, for example, right?
Okay.
And then reference ID you add one time to all these people, right? Assume.
Okay.
So once we add, what will happen? User one automatically inherit SU3 access. User
Okay,
2
sir.
also inherit SU3 access. Likewise, all this user inherit the access which is added to reference ID. Then tomorrow, your client say add one more access to all this 20 ID, right? So one way is like you go to each of the user ID and add this, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Otherwise, you just add SU10 in one ID, SU01 in one ID. So if you add in this ID, since the reference ID added to all these users, they will also inherit SU01. So here you have to make change in only one user and then all the 20 user get it. Correct?
Okay, sir.
Likewise, if you give SU01 here, all these 20 user automatically get SU01. We don't have to add individually to 20 user, but to one user. Correct? No, everyone. Okay, Upendra is fine. Kavya, any question?
No.
No, no.
Okay. So that is the logic, that is the purpose of this reference ID. So let's see the same example. Maybe we already have instead of this user one, like we say that mobile ID is there. Okay. So what we do, we create a reference ID. Let's create into the system. So first to create a reference ID that is again not belong to any person. Then here we doesn't have any first name, last name, email ID, and nothing. And then here log on not possible. Reference ID we have to do. So see, as soon we create a user type as a reference ID, the password is automatically deactivated. Okay. So if the password
Yes, sir.
deactivated, nobody is able to log in. Okay, directly from here, especially the reference ID. And then we can give the access to the user for SU3. So we have to assign some role. So let's see if you have SU3 role. Otherwise, we can create a role.
Sir, can we use the same ID for system or communication also?
Nahi.
Okay.
No. Okay, so this we doesn't have. So we go here. So see everybody, like we will be learning anyhow in detail how to create a role. A role is the way to provide the access to the user. So to create a role, like we have to go with PSCG and create a role name, and we are adding a transaction which is required by the user. So we go with SU3 transaction. So we created the role. We assign the role to the user here, SU3. So now this reference ID has SU3 access. So, Miss, what we have done so far, according to the Excel. Means we create a reference ID and we have given only this access to this user. A reference ID created and access is there for this user SE3. Now we have already the Uber ID. So we open the Uber ID. So we go to SU01 and then keep here the Uber ID and go for change. So once we go for change, then if you go to the role, so here also you can see Uber doesn't have any role or profile. But in the role tab, you have here one option for reference ID, right? Reference user. So our reference ID, REF ID, that's what we created, right? We just add the reference ID here and save here. And once the Uber logged in into the system, for example, this is Uber ID. Where is Uber ID? Okay, I think this. Let's log in with the Uber now to test that how it works. So I'm logging to Uber ID and try to see if I have SU3 access or not. Okay, and then if I run SU3 transaction, I'm able to run it. So with SU3, I can able to maintain our default parameters, for example, what language you want, what decimal notation, and other stuff. So this is like a non-critical transaction. You can give to anybody. So, but the point here is, though the user Uber doesn't have any role or profile, it has only the reference user ID in the role tag, and then all the access from the reference ID is inherited by Uber. Correct? Right now. So the important thing to understand, Uber inherit the access which is given to the reference ID, which is SU3. Correct? Kavya, any question? Any query question by anyone?
No, sir.
Yeah, Kavya, you are on mute.
Oh, sorry. No questions.
So this logic you got it, na? See, understanding like how I add PFCG, I created adding a transaction, leave what this assigning. Only logic that you understand that if we create a reference ID and add whatever the transaction or access we give to the reference ID, and if we add the reference ID to the user in the role tab, then user inherit the access from the reference ID. That's the logic you have to understand. Okay. All right. Okay. So then just moving next. So these ID we have seen, and one ID is remaining that we'll be covering like a tomorrow section, like what is the communication ID. And now we just move a little bit more further. Okay. So we learn the parameter tab. Okay. Role tab, profile tab we have seen. The user group also we have seen. Is it or no? No, no. Well, okay. Yeah, no. So see the user group is also here. One tab is there. And then there is a specific purpose for the user group. Okay. So how we can do that? So to create a user group. So see the purpose of the user group. First purpose is to categorize the user into the grouping. So like uh, we'll be creating many users. Like for example, Uber we created your ID or Binka ID or many other IDs or with the Kavya ID. So how system knows that this person is a manager, this person is a sales manager, this person uh, is like a purchase manager likewise. So either we can create a group in that way, or suppose you are a multinational company and then um, different people is belong to different locations. Like some of the people is working in for India and some person is working in US. So maybe you can make a difference with the help of this users belong to US or this person belong to India. So we can create a user group, and once we create a user group and assign the user group, then it is easier for us to know that who user belong to which type of user area, or what is the category, what is the classification for that user. Okay, that is the logic of it. Okay, and to do that, um, like to create a user group, we have the transaction SUGR. Okay, SU means user, that way you can remember, and GR means group. So SUGR. Okay, and if you run this transaction SUGR, then you can see the user group screen is coming, where you can keep the user group name. Like maybe we can say SAL. Just example. Click on create. Give the description for this. Sales manager user group. So we have kept here the sales manager user group. Okay. So after that, we can save it. So that's it. So we just have to save it. So that's simple. How we can create a sales manager user group. Similarly, if you want to create a user group as a purchase manager, for example, PUR MGR, give a description for the user group, right? And then you can save it. So this is how we can create a purchase manager user group. The criteria could be you can create a US as a user group or India as a user group. That again depend on which logic you want to utilize to create a user group. So that is the purpose of it. So create the user group. So once we created a user group, after that, we can assign this user group to the user. So to assign the user group to the user, then we go with SU01 transaction. Once you go to the SU01, and then suppose Ubaid is working as sales manager, and you want to categorize the user as a sales manager, then how we can do that? So we go to the user. Suppose Ubaid is working as sales manager, so we can go to the group, and then we say like a sales manager. So we can assign this group to the web and save it, right? Similarly, other person who is working as a purchase manager, right? So we go to the system and you can assign the user as a purchase manager group. So by which the user is able to recognized as a like a ABCD, for example, is the user. So if you go to this group tab, and then for this user, if you assign purchase manager, Then this user become the purchase manager. Okay, so this is how it happened. So that is the purpose of it. And then like this is how we can keep assigning the group based on like which user belong to which user group. And then if you want to find that later, like for 100 users, you assign the purchase manager group or maybe sales manager group for example. And then later, if your company say, okay, can you give me the list of the users who is working as a sales manager, right? So if you not just create a group and assign the group to the user, then it is difficult for you to find out of like 10,000 users who are the users who is working as sales manager or who are the users who is working as a purchase manager. So if you assign the group, then here this SUIM is on transaction is there. So this SUM transaction is especially used for the purpose of finding which user have uh, or the user information, like which user have which role, which user have which profile, which user have which group. So for that, we will be having one transaction SUIM. Okay. Again, Miss SU Miss user information IM can take as a input. It's IN it should be, but IM you can take the user information. Okay, so this is you can say user information system, right? So here this is there, and then if you go to this user, that anyhow we are going to see in detail, and then user by complex selection criteria. If you go here, and then if you keep here the user group here, for example, manager, like sorry, sales manager, for example, and if you run it, you are able to see who are the users who have been assigned with the sales manager user group. So you can see where is the user who have been assigned with the sales manager user group. That's the reason it is showing you the result. Correct? So if it is like 1,000 users is there, it will also pull you 1,000 users also who have been assigned in the user group. Okay, manager as a sales manager. Okay. So is that okay, everybody? Any question?
Sir, once again, just to show, can you show the group assignment, sir, once just.
Here in the SUGR, so SU01, if you go, for example, Kavya ID is there. So in the Kavya ID, if I go to this group tab, and then here if I assign Kavya also NGR means sales NGR, and then assign it, save it. And then if you want to find like who are the user who's working as a sales manager, so if you refresh here, or if you go back and come back here, and let's go back, and then here in the general sales manager user group, you can keep and run it. Then you can see like two users has been working as a sales manager, right? Kavya and Kavya.
Okay, sir, got it.
All right, everybody. All okay?
Yes, got it. Yes.
Okay. So if that is okay, everybody. So now I just give you some assignments also.
Yes, it does. Pony.
Hmm? Sorry. So these are the users I have given to you, everybody. And copy users. See, these many small things I given to you, everybody. You has to follow that and complete that.
16 లో 6 25 25 30 16 ఒకటి 6 11 30 అయినా కానీ అయ్యాలా
Yeah, Kavya, think we are getting your
ఈరోజు ఏం
voice.
పెడుతున్నావు?
రోజు 40 ఎట్లా పెడుతున్నా కానీ
ఇవే
టుడే ఐ హావ్ కోడెడ్ 16 5 21 ప్లస్ 6 ఎంత 27 20
Okay, so anyhow, so what we are going to see, like this is the assignment we have shared with you. So what you all has to do is that assignment, right? Assignment, okay, this one. So these are small assignments. So if anybody, like for example, Tabe, you have not completed and Kubaid you not completed, so you can complete. Create a user ID, for example, 60 and 61 Ubaid, and then you can create a 40 and 41 as a simple normal user ID, a dialog ID, and then you have to set the default for these two IDs as default language as a English, and like a default date parameters is DD and YY and DD, for example. And then you have to copy the users. You can copy this from this user to this user. That's what is the assignment. And now we want to give to you some little more assignment. So let's
Because first column VA1, VA02, VA03, that is the users we need to create or
no, this will leave it. And that is later point of assignment.
okay.
Okay. So from here, like we have to do something like create the service ID. That is the assignment. Okay, 22. Okay, so these IDs we have to create and create the system ID. Okay. Reference ID. Okay, any more not given. So I'm giving the user group for the purpose of like a location. So if you want to think over like these people, like you will created already these two people, user, these two user, these two user, or these. So if these two users belong to Pune, Mumbai, then you can assign the Mumbai as a user group to the user these two person working